Too Much Information is a production of iHeart Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Too Much Information, the show that brings you the secret histories and little-known fascinating facts and figures behind your favorite movies, music, TV shows, and more. We're your two realtors of random facts. I'm Alex Heigl. That one wasn't that good. Don't give me that.
It's not bad. I'm Jordan Runtagh.
And Jordan, today we're talking about one of the cornerstones of MTV's early aughts cable dominance, the show that updated the lifestyles of the rich and famous formula for a blissful pre-9/11 era of celebrity voyeurism and provided a pre-social media first-person glimpse into the way the other half lives. That's right. We're talking about MTV Cribs, which turned 22 this fall. This was one of the few reality shows that I remember watching as a kid, maybe just passively, but there's like certain images from it that are really burned into my brain. Chiefly among them is the one of Fat Joe demonstrating that he had never worn a particular pair of Nikes by licking the shoe, the entire sole of the shoe from bottom to top. That will stay with me long after the faces of my loved ones have faded. How about you?
I very much do remember as well. I just sort of absorbed it through some sort of cultural osmosis. During the early 2000s, that was my era of really not engaging with contemporary popular culture. And I was basically doing everything in my power to live life like it was 1966. So I didn't really watch Cribs unless I was with friends. And the problem for me was that I really didn't know a lot of the people on it. And to this day, like, I bet if I looked up the first few seasons of Cribs, I could probably name maybe half the people, like a song by them or something. Like,
That's
for example,
interesting.
like to this day, I don't know who Redman is. He's known to me entirely because of his appearance
You're
on
telling me you've
Cribs.
never seen How High, his
No.
comedic masterpiece with Method Man? You've never
No.
seen Seed of Chucky, the third or fourth best Chucky sequel?
No. I've never seen
There's a great
that.
running gag in that movie where Jennifer Tilly keeps pronouncing his name as Redman.
That's good. That's good. I didn't know him. I didn't know Lit. I didn't know Silk the Shocker. I didn't know
Lit?
Master P.
I don't know Lit, dude.
I didn't know Trick Daddy. These names are all mysteries to me. No,
My Own Worst Enemy?
no.
Yeah, see, I don't know. We checked out at different times then, because like when I was like, this would have been, I was 13. Yeah, I was still very much getting a lot of pop culture from MTV.
Does Lit have that album cover that kind of looks a little 50s? Because I do remember that.
Do you remember their music video where they're crawling all over a giant-sized Pam Anderson?
No, but I remember really liking the Gucci art style of their album covers, Place in the Sun and Tripping the Light Fantastic. Yeah, I remember thinking that their logo was cool, seemed kind of 50s.
Yeah, Place in the Sun has the good singles on it. Anyway, that's enough about that. I want to see like who else baffles you on the list of Cribs. We're gonna do a quick parlor game here. Cisco, Moby,
Well, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Jewel.
Who?
Come on, Jewel.
Oh, Jewel. Yeah.
Jewel.
Yeah.
Big Boy. Well, Outcast. Big
Okay,
Boy's
yeah,
Outcast.
yeah.
AJ McLean of Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray.
Yeah.
Destiny's Child.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah.
POD.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. We are the youth of the nation. Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Busta
All right,
Rhymes.
okay, yeah.
Tommy Lee.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters did Cribs?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Along with
Wow.
Pam Anderson and Poison.
That's a hell of an episode. Wow. Okay.
No
well,
doubt.
I'm actually
Yeah.
I
They
feel
had- 'cause
slightly
they had
better
some-
about.
Yeah, they had some older on. They had like Boy George was on one of these. Rob
Really?
I remember Rob Zombies actually. And then they did start getting older people on here. Patti LaBelle is in an episode of this. Gene
What?
Simmons, Downtown Julie Brown, Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton pops up sandwiched between Jamie Lynn Sigler of the Sopranos and Gary Payton of the Seattle Supersonics.
That rules.
Anyway, all right. Well, from the tremendous throne of lies that these assembled celebrity guests presided over as they paraded other people's wealth as their own, to the surprisingly heartfelt icon-to-icon piano-related story at the center of one of its most absurd episodes, to, yes, that iconic episode starring Redman. Here's everything you never knew about MTV Cribs. In a way, Cribs dates back to 1983, when an Entertainment Tonight reporter named Robin Leach cold called a Dallas camerawoman for PM Magazine and the local ABC affiliate by the name of Lee Ellen Patchen with a job offer to film some segments for the pilot of the TV show he was developing. He did not bother to explain anything about it other than the fact that it was called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. That show would run for the next 12 years and 68 episodes and make an impression on a woman named Nina L. Diaz, who arrived at MTV in 1997 as a young freelancer, and within a few years became a staff executive producer with MTV News and their documentary wing.
Wait. Okay. Wow. She was a young freelancer in 97. Cribs premiered in September 2000. Went from freelancer to successfully pitching a show through to series in 3 years. I can't imagine that ever happening today. Wow.
Yeah, and she's like head of Viacom something.
Yeah.
She's like a real power player. Her dad was a longtime New York journalist named David Diaz, but she started doing their documentary stuff for them. So she was actually like a legitimate journalist, and then, as I'll explain in a moment, got tired of it. She told Entertainment Weekly in 2020, I was doing long-form music news pieces and documentaries covering artists and celebrities in very structured interviews. As a fan first, I was always curious to explore more about these dynamic personalities and get to know them in more authentic and unfiltered ways. Back then, we didn't have as much access to peek behind the curtain and have intimacy with our favorite artists. There was so much more mystique surrounding celebrity images. So then she told the Washington Post that same year, I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to know who they were when they were off campus, if you will. And she basically pitched the idea for the show to her bosses at MTV as Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous without a host. She said it was clear that I didn't want to host. I wanted it to be first person. I wanted that unfiltered, raw, real, let your hair down version of these artists and celebrities. While her bosses got the concept right away, it was a harder sell for the proposed subjects. We were told that no one would ever entertain the idea of letting us into their homes, she told Entertainment Weekly. All the record labels and many of the people told us that it was impossible, she added to the Washington Post. We got the flat out, you're crazy, this will never happen, no one is ever letting you into their house. We're talking pre-Housewives, pre-Instagram and social media, all of this. You weren't supposed to have the peek behind the gates, she continued. You did not have access as a fan to that level of information about your favorite artist. Celebrities had a high level of privacy. Outside of those promotional venues, they didn't need to let you that deep into their world, and they had an image they needed to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we talked about in the Osbournes episode. Now in the social media era, it's hard to remember how rare it was to basically just see celebrities be boring. Just like see them in their car, see them in their living room.
And just the idea of like, I mean, coming off like media, I mean, like sports figures have media training and stuff, but like the idea of one of these labels, like letting one of their massive investments essentially roll around without a handler and talk to a camera that probably had like, you know, Irving Azoff quaking in his boots, you know?
But it was little old Jermaine Dupri who bust the floodgates open, Diaz said. Diaz would later say, that was huge. The house he was living at in Atlanta for the episode that they filmed was barely furnished at the time. It was filled with luxury cars and champagne, but had only Tombstone frozen pizzas in the fridge. And, you know, after a career working in stage-managed MTV news segments, Diaz was just bowled over by the lever of access that she wound up with these celebrities. She said 9 times out of 10, there wouldn't be a publicist, a rep, or a manager there. The celebrities were just so at home, literally. They were so relaxed about the whole thing. It's nice that Jermaine Dupri is the man responsible for helping make Cribs happen, because I booked him when I was at VH1 for a film segment, got a whole film crew, and didn't show day of. Oof. Had to pay everybody, and you know, so I don't care much for Jermaine Dupri, but I guess we can thank him for Cribs. So for that, I'm slightly less bitter.
They must have filmed these and
it out of sequence,
broadcasted them out of order, because I read that the core group that they launched with as a demographic sampler for Cribs was Dupri, Steve Harwell from Smash Mouth, Fieldy from Korn, and Carmen Electra. They filmed all of those in 4 weeks. That was their pilot program for that. That is I gotta say, that's a pretty stirring cross-section of the year 2000.
One of the producers for the show, named Erica Clark, told Thrillist, initially it was hard asking if you could go into someone's house. Rappers and athletes were way more into doing it because of the culture of look at what we have. That's interesting. Cribs executive producer David Cherulnik has pegged Jermaine Dupri's episode as especially influential because there's a scene when he shows off his Bentley, saying that the luxury car was a true sign of a big dog, his words, who'd really made it. And Cherulnik estimates that a dozen other celebrities went out and bought, or at very least rented, Bentleys after this, and also made sure their fridges were conspicuously stocked with Cristal, just based on the precedent Jermaine Dupri set in his early episode. Incredible. As the show became more popular, producers stopped having to seek out celebrities, who quickly started watching their peers and came to view the show as a form of image management. The executive producer later told ABC, some of the most dedicated viewers of Cribs were other celebrities. Oh, I'm sure. This is probably the ultimate, like, keeping up with the Joneses situation.
Yeah.
Daryl E. Smith, the show's director of photography, told the Washington Post, the best way to explain it is there was a shift. The agents and the celebrities found out that if I'm on Cribs, my stock goes up. It became integral to somebody's career. You're not on Cribs? How come you're not on Cribs?
The show wasn't traditional, he continued. You couldn't stop and restart. You had to just reset on the fly. We moved and we captured so much that way versus stopping and setting up at the time. Diaz said in a book on the show how minimal their setup really was. We have a 2-camera crew, 1 director, 1 producer, and then the 2 cameras are a steady cam and a guy on handheld getting B-roll, director of photography, and audio people. So there are 6 or 7 people who show up on an artist's doorstep, but really it's, other than the audio, it's just 2 camera guys. It's a lot of equipment and takes an hour just to set up. Then we do a walkthrough. And yes, that is the first time we are seeing the house. We don't know anything about it going in. A typical day of shooting was about 5 to 8 hours, they said. As the show picked up steam and went from shooting just a few times a month to almost every week, agents picked up on it as a way to pitch their young talent to MTV, including Paul Walker. Fast and the Furious era, Paul Walker, Smith said. When we did his place, he had a hole in the kitchen floor, a hole in the wall. Nobody knew he was going to be what he became. Ashton Kutcher, same way, except he had a better place.
Those punked bucks.
Yeah, it's true. Or 70s.
Both, yeah.
That's 70s, yeah. That guy's really just been inescapable for someone who just sucks for so damn long.
He has so much money
yeah.
from 3.5 Men.
Yeah, it was like, what? That 70s show for Fox. Money, syndication money. His abortive stab at being a movie star, for which I'm sure he still got big paychecks from.
$200 million he's worth.
Son of as the show picked up steam, certain phrases, bits, if you will, became indelibly lodged into the zeitgeist because of them. To wit, the phrase, where the magic happens, which is usually how a male celebrity would introduce his bedroom.
It was always males, you're right. Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
Joey McIntyre, formerly of the band New Kids on the Block, may have been the first to use the phrase on the show. You can hear him say it as he flops onto his bed. Earlier on that segment, McIntyre says his home was a stop on the Underground Railroad and highlights a secret passageway. So he and his crib contain multitudes.
Speaking of cribs, how did a word associated with babies arrive at being shorthand for one's adult-sized and presumably very costly dwelling? Well, thanks to a 2014 installment of NPR's Code Switch column by Lakshmi Gandhi, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the first time crib was used to mean a small dwelling came in William Shakespeare's 1597 play Henry VI.
Damn it, William.
Specifically in part 1, when King Henry delivers this soliloquy about his subjects and expresses bewilderment at their living arrangements. You were in Shakespeare Society. You should read
Nope.
this.
I don't do that. I don't work on Mondays. Give me your John Gielgud. Give me your John Gielgud.
I'll give you Richard Harris.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, if I could do Richard Harris, if I had like 20 minutes to like get the timbre. Why rather sleep liest thou in smoky cribs, upon uneasy pallets stretching thee, and hushed with buzzed night flies to thy slumber, than in the perfumed chambers of the great?
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah.
We gotta put Shakespeare in this bitch more.
The thing is, though, I don't know what I just said. I just said the
No,
words.
no one does. We're all just faking it. I want to do Macbeth, but I want to do Macbeth as Denzel Washington because he did Macbeth. He was in Macbeth, and he does it all in his Denzel voice. I dare do all that may become a man. He who dares more is none.
I can't believe you just did Shakespeare as Denzel, and I knew exactly what you were doing.
It's because I was just repeating that line reading. It's a great one. It's the Coen Brothers staging where Frances McDormand is Lady Macbeth.
Oh, that was good. And then Polanski, the Polanski version.
He did Macbeth?
Of,
Macbeth, 71.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, that's a lot of people say it was his way of sort of excising his demons after Sharon Tate's murder.
Oh,
it's a rough watch, but it's powerful. We watched that in our English class.
On to a much less distinguished use of the word.
Yes,
Shakespeare's sidebar over.
Yes, by the early 1800s, the word crib took on a much more scandalous connotation. Per Jonathan Green in his book Crooked Talk, 500 Years of the Language of Crime, crib had come to refer to the room where a prostitute would entertain her clients. And the phrase crib girl emerged to refer to prostitutes themselves. I'd never heard that. And across the pond in England, crib had a very different meaning in the Dickensian underworld. Basically, it was used interchangeably as a place you wanted to rob, and also as a verb meaning to rob, to crib something. It's kind of like when you're cheating off a test, you crib answers from somebody. Yeah, it's still sort of used. The villainous Fagin in Charles Dickens' 1838 novel Oliver Twist makes several references to breaking into cribs throughout the novel. And then about a century later in the 1940s came the first Black American references to cribs as homes. And that was included in Dan Burley's original handbook of Harlem Jive, which is the source of many other popular words and phrases. As Burley wrote in one verse, "'Twas the night before Nicktide, and all through the crib you could hear Joe Hip spieling that righteous ad-lib." I don't know what that means either. I'm 3 for 3 in not understanding what I just read, but I like that. And African writers began to pick up the term crib following Burley's book. And in 1958, the word was common enough that it was included in Langston Hughes and Arna Wendell Bontemps' The Book of Negro Folklore, in which they defined a crib as, quote, "a house, home, where you can not only hang your hat, but raise hell." And it was that meaning of crib that was carried on to MTV.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Too Much Information in just a moment.
But now we must arrive at the portion of the program that I assume all of you small, mean-spirited people out there, of which I count myself as one, were waiting for with the proverbially bated breath. The part where we puncture a bunch of celebrities' appearances on cribs. According to Redman, who we'll get to in a bit, he'd already suspected something was afoot when the show reached out to him. Let's be very clear, he told Uproxx earlier this month. A lot of people were renting houses for MTV Cribs. And I used to be like, yo, their house is too neat. Every house they showed on there was neat. The refrigerator stocked full with food and water. I was like, yo, there's something going on that I'm not getting. Until they asked me, and the first thing they said was, we've got a couple of houses picked out for you.
Ooh, this never dawned on me until researching this episode.
Because again, this is ground zero for reality TV.
Yeah.
We're like idiot children being like, they can't lie to us on television.
I didn't think that they would care or not. I don't know. I just assumed that like they actually had these houses.
Perhaps nowhere is this more clear than the episode featuring erstwhile aughts hip-hop icons, the Yin Yang Twins. Remember the Yin Yang Twins, Jordan?
A
Whisper song?
Bit. I remember. We used to do that friends of mine used to do that in class as a way to dare each other and see how long they could go until the teacher noticed.
Sure. They supposedly rented a house in Atlanta for their episode, completely sight unseen, and promptly toured through ad-libbing the entire thing and never once giving anything away in light of the obvious fact the place had not been decorated by them or anyone in their employ. At one point, pointing to a painting of the fish, one of them says he caught it in Johannesburg.
I mean,
that episode is hilarious. They're just picking up random bits of the decor and playing with it. It's actually really funny as performance arts. But before we get to the houses of lies, let's start with the garages of lies. 50 Cent, aside from the transparent shillery of opening a fridge in his 19-bedroom, 6-kitchen Connecticut mansion that had been completely and solely stocked with vitamin water,
that I remember,
which he had just inked a deal with, 50's parade of Ferraris in his driveway, an Enzo, an F50, and a 599 in this episode, caught the eye of some enthusiasts of the brand on the car forum Ferrari chat, and those amateur sleuths quickly identified that trio of cars as belonging to a Connecticut collector, only identified by the initials SC. There are two dead giveaways to this bit of decades-old Connecticut car drama, according to the posters. One is that there is only one yellow Ferrari Enzo in the state of Connecticut, and that dude owns it, Mr. SC, possibly Steve Carell. We have no idea, or Steve Coogan, you know, because Alan Partridge was taken off at the time. Also, that guy
did 24-hour party people. Yeah.
Oh yeah. This forum person, they're like, I know that guy. He lives a few miles away from where 50 lives because 50 bought that house from Mike Tyson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then the other giveaway in this is that their numbers on the windshields of the F50 and the Enzo, which he recognized from both of those cars appearing in a car show in Hartford recently. 50 finally unloaded that mansion, which he got the show Cribs to dedicate an entire episode to instead of just the segment. He got rid of it.
It was nuts. It was it was completely insane. Yeah.
Well, there's a great bit where he marvels at the $80,000 Baccarat crystal chandelier in a room he never eats in. And he says, I could have bought a BMW for that. He finally got rid of it in the mansion, not the chandelier or the rented Ferraris, in 2019 at an 84% discount after 12 years on the market. Mike Tyson didn't know what he was doing. He got out while the getting was good.
Well, did you get into the whole thing later on about how 50 Cent, when he filed for bankruptcy, claimed that he's doing some shady things with money because he basically claims that he has no money ever and everything was all rented.
This was in 2015, I think I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and he claimed that everything in that episode was rented. He somehow, because I think somebody was filing for divorce or something, and he somehow had all of his assets and money in other people's hands so that he could just claim that he had no money, which was deliciously evil.
Moving on, Birdman and Bow Wow, Wither, surely those names mean something to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was actually Birdman's real mansion, but the pride and joy of it, this 1972 Chevy Phantom conversion, it's a Rolls-Royce Phantom chopped with a 70s Chevy, that he IDs as like his pride and joy. That was built by a guy named Amir Records, had a shop called Spade Creations in Cincinnati. And the car was actually owned by a gentleman named Congo, I assume, like Bono or Cher. You can find the guy driving this car around on YouTube. But yeah, Baby liked it enough that he rented it for the day and passed it off as his own.
This is my sweet car.
Yeah, it's a really good car. Rapper Bow Wow, who I guess by that point, was he still Lil at that point?
I think it was definitely.
All right, so we'll honor the convention. Lil Bow Wow, on his appearance, showed off a Bentley, a Lamborghini, and a Cadillac Escalade on his Cribs segment, all of which can be seen bearing the word prestige on the side of them, which is the visual calling card of a Miami car rental company called Prestige Luxury Rentals.
That's a rookie move.
Again, not something that you could. The internet was not around. People like you could have just flogged this stuff off, and no one would have caught you. It's only 20 years later that we're exposing your lies. Bow wow. Holding your feet to the fire.
Well, didn't he also do that thing a couple years ago where he posted like a stock photo of a private jet on Instagram and claimed that it was like his own, and then people just like reverse image searched it? And we're like,
I don't.
wait,
I think yes,
yeah.
yes. Good for him. And now we must come to the people who betrayed their viewers' trust by failing to live up to even the most simple mandate of the show, that this be
this is your house,
their crib. Ja. Precious sweet Ja Rule. God, what is he like? You know, what's that quote in Yiddish? In Yiddish, there's the guy who gets the soup spilled on him is a schmuck. Shmiel, and the guy who gets it spilled on him is the schmuck or schmozzle or something.
Schmozzle,
and they're pointing to another character and they're like, he's both the schmiel and the schmozzle. And that's Ja Rule. In a now hilarious presaging of his Fire Festival debacle, Ja's appearance on Cribs ended in ignominy and litigation. For his 2004 segment, he rented an 8,000 square foot Miami mansion for $46,000 for 4 days to film the show without receiving permission from the landlord to actually film at the house or have parties. The owner, Jeanette Varela, was outraged when she watched the episode and saw what was taking place.
She's settling in, flips on MTV, just sees her house with Ja Rule walking through it, literally like he owns the place.
600 people showed up to be a part of this shoot. In the lease agreement, it was specified it could be occupied by 8 adults.
Oh, was that the one where didn't like Jay-Z show up or something? And,
yeah, on like
and the Fast and
like
Furious
RV
co-stars came.
Yep.
Jordana Brewster and
Yep. And I guess all these guys showed up with like tour buses and stuff, and were like backing into different parts of the home because she says she came home and she found severe structural damage and discarded condom wrappers and syringes all over her house, and she took Ja to court for over $1 million in damages. I wasn't able to find out how that shaked out. I assume
probably not well for Ja.
I was assume poorly for him.
And this brings us to Robbie Williams. How well is he really known over here? I know him from Millennium and Rock DJ, really. With
yeah,
the video where he strips off his skin.
I was just about to say, that's the thing I know him for, is that
video.
Gross video.
But like Elvis level star in the UK. He was just 23 years old when he appeared on Cribs in a St. Catherine's Court mansion in the town of Bath, England, that he passed off as his, which he'd rented from the actress Jane Seymour, without telling her what his plans for this were. That's a horrible thing to pull over on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. He also, this is easily my favorite part. In addition to renting the house, he also rented a crew of butlers that came on and waited on him while he was on camera. He made a public apology to her for this deception 23 years later.
This was just in March of 2020. It's so funny.
So he's like in lockdown, early lockdown, going through his past wrongs. And
making amends.
Yeah.
We didn't let Jane know I was going to pretend it was my house. And because I was like 23 and full of spunk, I didn't even consider other people's thoughts or feelings. So I would like to take this opportunity to apologize to Jane Seymour. So saith Robbie. Robbie. Wasn't he was in some boy band, right?
Yeah, he was in Take That.
Take That.
Millennium's a great song.
Is it?
Samples You Only Live Twice. My favorite Bond theme.
I don't remember. Is that the skeleton video?
No, that's Rock DJ.
Okay.
Where he's like stripping and then he rips his skin off. And that video is hilarious.
Kim Kardashian. Sporting her Mark I face, Kim takes fans on a tour of the Hidden Hills mansion owned by her mother, Kris Jenner, filled with not her things, like her now stepmother's Olympic medal. She doubles down on this trail of deception by strolling into the kitchen, confidently declaring, "I am a baker," and then pointing to a tray of obviously store-bought cookies. There's also a part where she picks up a copy of Dub magazine in which she claimed to have collaborated with the guys at Platinum Motorsports and designed a line of rims that I'm calling the Princess line. I was unable to verify if that ever actually came to fruition, but the important thing is that while holding the magazine, she sighs to herself, "There's nothing better to do on a Sunday than sit and read about yourself."
She has the bedroom with the strip pole in it, right?
Yeah, she had the stripper pole in it.
Oh.
Which again, like, I don't know. People were like, she would have been living in like Beverly Hills at the time because this is like just coming out of Paris Hilton Closet Organizer. Like, she would not have been living in Hidden Hills with Chris. But I don't know. The cookies thing, though, is pretty innocuous when you consider another well-documented, bold-faced lie from the show's run. When Brooke Hogan, remember Brooke Hogan being a known quantity in the world? When she was taking viewers through the home she shared with her siblings, her dad, the Hulkster, and his then-wife Linda, Brooke claimed that her mother had lived in Paris for 5 years to study architecture and had actually designed the home they were living in.
This was not true.
No!
From what I understand, the actual designers of the house were quite hurt and annoyed when they heard that on TV. We should be very careful about what we say about any of the Hogans, considering that Hulk single-handedly brought down Gawker.
Well, with Peter Thiel in his back pocket.
Oh, yeah.
And Bubba the Love Sponge.
And this brings us to JoJo, a fellow Boston kid just like me.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. She sang 2004's Leave, parentheses, Get Out as a teenager. So it turned out she didn't have a home of her own when she appeared on Cribs, which is sad hearing me say that out loud. "We didn't have a home at that point," she told the Huffington Post in 2015. "My mom and I were living out of suitcases and we were mostly in hotels. So that was actually my uncle's house on the Cape." See, Boston thing. "That wasn't my house. That wasn't my stuff. When I was sitting on that spinny thing, that was his kid's spinny thing. That's the truth. I should have bawled hard and been like, 'Welcome to my crib. Look at how luxurious it is.' And I should have rented out a place. But no, I just used my uncle's crib. So that was me lying on Cribs." And for her part, show creator Nina Diaz was not especially concerned about the deceit, telling Vice that to her, the house is just a backdrop for an entertaining interview. She's quoted as saying, "I was at the Robbie Williams one, and as you know, it was thoroughly entertaining. I'd never seen that side of him, so we felt a huge sense of accomplishment and pride. We knew that he was just staying there to record an album, but what we captured was so fun and interesting and revealing."
No, it's your opinion. It's one woman's opinion. Now that we've successfully filtered out the dross here, we're going to spend some time with the cream of the crop, arguably the show's two highest watermark episodes, Mariah Carey and the aforementioned Redman.
The two extremes.
Carey's 2002 episode of Cribs showed off her 11,000 square foot Tribeca penthouse, which she called her first apartment ever. It took 24 hours for them to get all the footage of the tri-level dwelling, throughout which Carey changed outfits multiple times, once on camera with the aid of an assistant. She also gets into a bathtub full while still wearing a towel, gets on her Stairmaster while wearing stiletto heels.
That's the image for me.
Yeah. Shows off the salon and lingerie-only closet included in there. Mentions that she's only used her shower once because it has too many knobs. And my personal favorite, displayed the Mermaid Room, which is a movie theater, where the saltwater aquarium that is full of fish that she says have been changed to be nocturnal to match her sleep schedule. There's just so much to unpack there. How are they changed, Mariah? Whatever.
When do fish sleep?
I guess whenever, when Mariah,
God, are you there?
When Mariah says they can.
This leads us all into perhaps her most baffling claim, which is that she owns Marilyn Monroe's piano and that she would show it to the cameras if she could, but she can't.
Which is a little bit like the Canadian girlfriend thing. Like, yo, I totally have a girlfriend. No, you can't meet her. She goes to summer camp in Canada. And this is what bothers me about, this is what we do well on this show, is we fact check this stuff. Because if you Google Mariah Carey Cribs, you're going to get 12,000 listicles that are like, she says she has Marilyn's piano. Does Marilyn even play piano? Well, folks, because we go the extra goddamn mile for you here on TMI, you're going to learn something today.
Yes, Mariah Carey actually does own Marilyn's piano. Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean Baker in 1926 to Gladys Pearl Baker, who surrendered her to a foster family and reclaimed her when Marilyn was 7 in 1933. They lived together in one room in a house that Gladys had bought furnished and mostly rented out. And Marilyn wrote in her posthumously published autobiography, My Story, one day a grand piano arrived at my home. It was out of condition. My mother had bought it secondhand. It was for me. I was going to be given piano lessons on it. It was a very important piano, despite being a little banged up. It had belonged to the movie star Friedrich March. You'll play piano over here by the windows, my mother said, and here on each side of the fireplace there'll be a love seat, and we can sit listening to you. As soon as I pay off a few other things, I'll get the love seats, and we'll all sit in them at night, and we'll listen to you play the piano. Sadly, eventually, Marilyn's mother was taken to the Norwalk Mental Hospital, and Monroe was sent to an orphanage, losing all of her belongings in the process. But she continued in her book, I never forgot the white-painted house and its furniture. Years later, when I was beginning to earn some money from modeling, I started looking for the Friedrich March piano. After about a year, I found it in an old auction room and bought it. I have it in my home now in Hollywood. It's been painted a lovely white, and it has new strings and plays as wonderfully as any piano in the world. And when Monroe died, she left all her possessions to Lee Strasberg, her acting coach and confidant. And when Strasberg died, Marilyn's estate transferred ownership to Strasberg's wife, Anna, who contacted Christie's about setting up an auction. The piano expected to sell between $10,000 and $15,000, but it went for $662,500 in October 1999 to Mariah Carey, who'd been fixated on Marilyn since she'd been given a copy of Norman Mailer's biography of her when she was just 10 years old. Mariah said, I didn't want somebody to get this that didn't understand that this was her childhood embodied in something, because it was her mom's, and it was the only thing she had of hers, Carey told a reporter in 2007. Added that she hadn't even had it tuned, which the conservator in me appreciates that. Just leave it alone, leave it completely alone.
That's from a really interesting tape that I found online that is just someone taping her talking in her house, and it's like, it's pretty
Cool.
Unmistakably Mariah's voice, but she's just talking about it. She went way more into detail about the piano thing, talking about when she was growing up, they had a piano, and even as her home life sort of fell apart and Mariah did not have an easy early life, she could always go to the piano and sit down and play and sing, and that was her refuge. And I just love that she was so touched by the thing that this was the thing that Marilyn clung to, that she wanted to keep it out of the hands of someone who didn't understand how important that could be for a little girl. Really humanizes her in my eyes, considering how daffy she comes across and the rest of that. But I bear no quarrel to Mariah Carey, man.
Talent in every way a person can have talent.
And just a delight to be on camera delight.
Yep.
As you meditate on that, we'll be right back with more Too Much Information after these messages. Well, now we arrive at what you've all been waiting for.
It really is.
Rapper and How High and Seed of Chucky star Redman's episode of Cribs has become legendary for the way it gleefully turned the show's conventions on its ear. Red turned down the Cribs crew's offer to rent him a place and instead directed them to show up at his Staten Island home, which memorably featured a doorbell that had to be rung by touching two exposed wires together, a box full of loose money in the kitchen, and Redman's cousin Sugar Bear sleeping on the floor. We had no idea what we were getting into, T.S. said in the Cribs book. We were just as surprised as our viewers to see a broken screen door and a sleeping artist who told us to wake him up when we had the cameras on. The mess was real. One of his gold albums was propped up against the bathroom door. There were no sheets on his bed. That was the fastest crib we've ever shot. 4 hours is usually the minimum it takes to film a segment. Redman had a doctor's appointment to go to, so we shot the whole thing in under an hour. Thrillist did an astounding oral history of just this segment of Cribs. So this is what a lot of this comes from. Whereas other people would wait until they got this ballerific place to let us in because they had watched all these other ones like Master P, who was living in a gold Louisiana mansion, DS told Thrillist. People saw that and they would say, I'm not ready. You have to give me another year. I have to make some more bank. But that was not the way of Redman. As he explained, not every entertainer, and this is actually, I really like this. He says, not every entertainer's living lavish. They may have a more lavish set on the street, but it's still real for a lot of cats out here in the entertainment game. We're okay, but we're not rich, and that's what I wanted to display to my fans.
Yeah. Although I do get a little tinge of like Sir Mix-a-Lot saying that Baby Got Back, it was purely written because of body positivity. It's a little bit of self-serving, but I appreciate that anyway. The home was apparently supposed to be Redman's first real estate investment that he was going to fix up and flip, but then he ended up liking the space so much that he stayed. Oh, I like that too. And really dragged his feet on the whole fixing up thing, apparently. The crew for Cribs arrived so early that he didn't even have the time to do the bare amount of cleaning that he'd wanted to do, so they decided to keep him bleary-eyed and pretend that they were, in fact, just getting him out of bed to film. Don Reinholtz, who was the unit manager and camera operator for this shoot, recalled that the setup in the small place was tricky because they usually park all the equipment in the garage. So in this case, they had to stash it in the kitchen, and the two-camera setup made it difficult to maneuver around the tight space and keep the cameras and equipment out of the show, but keep the very dynamic Redman in. He's quoted as saying, "My space don't even have a back door." He's talking to Thrillist. "There's one way in and there's one way out." Reinholtz added that Redman, quote, "invited me to come back anytime I needed to hide from any boyfriends."
I just love how he gets the segment where he's ironing clothes on the floor. Now I present to you, unedited, the following explanation for the presence of Sugar Bear, who he still takes on tours with him as like a sideman and like a hype guy on stage, and introduces him as like the guy who's sleeping on my floor in Cribs, and people who
lose their minds.
Yeah. Redman said, "That's my first cousin. He was still in Jersey, and traveling back and forth can be a pain in the ass, so he was just crashing in my crib. He had a chance to sleep on the damn sofa, but he just chose the goddamn floor." Sugar Bear. I actually was sleeping, and I remember waking up, and it was just cameras in my face, and they were going, "Sign this for me." It was some kind of a release, and I was like, oh, there's some going on? The reason I was on the floor was because the couch, you know how it is when you're sleeping on a leather couch and it gets all hot. Jordan, you know how it is. I know what he's talking about. When it's too hot to sleep on a couch, I just go right to the floor. It's a cooler situation. And just like that, he skirted into television immortality. Redman returned with the network to the very same crib in 2014 for an updated segment to show off some of his upgrades. A door on the closet, a bigger TV, a screen in the storm door, new tiles in the bathroom, and a dollar sock instead of the dollar box.
Oh, that's sad that he upgraded. I think that's a downgrade, personally.
He stayed true to himself, though.
True.
In closing, to Thrillist, on the segment's enduring appeal, Redman said, "Once you do things and keep things 100% with yourself, you can never lose. And that's just what happened. That's why we won. We kept it 100, and we kept it truthful all the way."
And before we go out, we'd like to offer a random grab bag of highlights from Cribs. Snoop Dogg had a untouchable room of untouchableism, where I guess it's just like, you know, the fancy room in your parents' house that you're not really allowed to do anything in. He also had a studio with a handwritten sign. I don't know why I love this so much. That said, "This is not a kick it spot" on the door, which is great. John Travolta, instead of going through his house, gave viewers a tour of his private jet, which he then flew himself. After walking through the cabin and showing off all the amenities, he goes into the captain's seat and flies the show to L.A. This has gotta be a
pretty baller move, I gotta say.
Shaq had a 12-bedroom, 15-bathroom. 15-bathroom! I don't know, 15 people that would need to all go to the bathroom at the same time. Orlando Mansion, one of the most impressive houses in the show's history. The thing that's most impressive to me is this custom-made bed that's 15 feet long and 30 feet wide, which he proudly proclaimed the biggest bed in the world.
Seems that way, yeah.
Missy Elliott had a chair that was built into fish tanks, which I remember.
She also had she had a signed photo of Oprah because Oprah meant so much to her growing up, and when she finally met Oprah, I just thought that was cute.
Yeah, but she had a chair made of fish tanks.
And she turned a Lambo. She turned a Lambo into her bed.
Oh, right.
Unintentionally parroting the Kirk Van Houten, the Kirk Van Houten episode of The Simpsons, where he's like, "My bed is a race car. I sleep in a race car. Do you sleep in a race car?" And Homer goes, "I sleep in a big bed with my wife." No shade on Missy Elliott, though.
No, absolutely not. T-Pain had a club in his basement with a fiber optic stripper pole that his wife had installed for him as a surprise. Ice-T, I'll never forget this. He had an indoor pool with a retractable roof that could then become an outdoor pool, which I guess in retrospect,
I do remember that. Yeah,
is cheaper than having an outdoor pool and an indoor pool, although I imagine he probably has both anyway. Melissa Joan Hart, this was the weirdest flex that I remember on the show. She had a very normal looking bedroom, except she had several Picassos in there.
Good Lord. I don't think I remember that.
Maybe it was a joke. I don't remember them being like close up on them.
Oh yeah, Melissa Joan Hart also had all the Shirley Temple.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, like a descending hallway series of Shirley Temple prints.
Oh, I kind of remember. Yeah. Daryl Earnhardt Jr. showed off his 200-acre estate in North Carolina that had a small fake town in the backyard, like an old, almost like Spawn Ranch style Western set with a barbershop, a bank, a post office, a general store, a sheriff's office, and a church with a 75-foot steeple and the saloon. So that's weird.
To do what with? Just like drive around real fast?
I have parties in? I don't know.
All right.
I'm not sure. We already talked about Fat Joe, famous sneaker aficionado, wanting to demonstrate that his Jordans and Nikes had never been worn by licking the bottom of them. Yeah. Richard Branson spent $80 million renovating a private island compound, 78 acres. For some reason, he was very excited about his outdoor bathrooms, and
he poops.
Yes, that's how that episode, I believe, ends. So that's nice. Naomi Campbell filmed her episode while staying at the estate in Jamaica that Ian Fleming wrote the James Bond books, Goldeneye, the Goldeneye estate, which it's not even a rental. It's like a resort or something. Yeah, I'm not really sure how that works, but Ian Fleming, his family sold it to Bob Marley.
Really?
So the house was owned by Ian Fleming, Bob Marley, and then Chris Blackwell, who founded Island Records. And then it became I think through Chris Blackwell, became some kind of resort, which it is today.
I wonder if that's how the CIA got to Bob Marley. I mean, because Fleming was kind of a spook, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that was why he based James Bond on people we'd worked with at intelligence during the war.
I'm making connections, man. Just beautiful minded. I'm beautiful minded in here. Sorry, continue.
I think that's about all. Those are the most interesting things.
Wilmer Valderrama. You want to do his?
Oh, you should do his. I know how much you hate that 70s show.
Wilmer Valderrama proudly displayed his down market decor in his home. A single mattress on the floor, like sex dungeon style. And later it pans over to a china cabinet he has in his living room filled with red Solo cups and paper plates. All right, let's bring this home. We mentioned Cribs basically gave us the Osbournes when producers touring the home for that show just found Jack and Kelly's dynamic hilarious and pitched Sharon based on the strength of that segment alone. So in a way, there is an unbroken line from Robin Leach's unsolicited phone call in 1983 to the Osbournes to whatever circle of reality TV hell we're currently occupying. Cribs also anticipated the shift of the parasocial relationships we enjoy with our beloved celebrities to one largely couched in the first-person narrative format, by which I mean you no longer need an intermediary. You could just have celebrities talk right to your face. And once they had phones and social media, they didn't even need cameramen anymore. Just as MTV had cut out the middleman of anchors and journalists. In a way, MTV defeated itself by putting these changes in motion.
MTV killed
the MTV star. And frankly, with all the conversations about wealth inequality in this country, I think we've even moved past the braggadocious, flaunting tone of these shows. I mean, I think any celebrity with half a finger on the pulse would probably think the better of displaying their ostentatious wealth. I think a more generous reading of Cribs is that it captures artists at very specific phases in their career, usually before they're jaded and miserable and they're just young and occasionally flush to have money for the first time and just excited about showing it off. That's, I think, the more positive spin that you can put on this thing. You know, and they've aged, as have we all. And with that aging, the swag becomes a little more grounded, or dare I say, mature. I'd like to close out this episode with a specific incident illustrating image from the show. Outkast's Big Boy led the MTV crew down to a room in his home he called the Boom Boom Room, which had walls painted red, a giant pool table, and a stripper pole. On an episode of Desus and Mero, years later, he explained that the Boom Boom Room has become the Den Den, where his mom, who now owns the house, hosts Thanksgiving dinner. And if that isn't a microcosm of life, I don't know what is. Folks, thank you for listening. This has been Too Much Information. I'm Alex Heigl.
Just in time for Thanksgiving. And I'm Jordan Runtagh. We'll catch you next time.
Too Much Information was a production of iHeartRadio.
The show's executive producers are Noel Brown and Jordan Runtagh.
The show's supervising producer is Michael Alder June.
The show was researched, written, and hosted by Jordan Runtagh and Alex Heigl,
with original music by Seth Applebaum and the Ghost Funk Orchestra. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. For more podcasts on iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.